Wow. You guys really liked that Project Wingman video, didn't you? Well, I'm gonna make another one now, so here you go. I was gonna make it sooner, but then the pandemic too, Electric Boogaloo happened, so yeah. Also, that's probably why my voice might sound a bit different. I'm also trying to get my audio stuff working even better than last time. I am also going to make that Conquest video, but apparently they're going to update it soon, so I don't want the video to be out of date. But apart from that, there's nothing else I gotta really say, so enjoy the video. There you are, you've just installed Project Wingman for the first time and you're just getting into it. It's the first mission, pretty fun, pretty easy, you just have to shoot a few things. Ground targets, air targets, even a few naval targets. It's pretty fun. The mission's over now and all you have to do is explode one last container ship. It should be easy. The entire port is gone and the shockwave shakes your jet. All you can think while the smoke clears is, well, what the fuck was that? CORDIUM is completely made up, and because of that we only have information from Project Wingman itself. Luckily there's a file viewer where we can read up on stuff like this. Plus, CORDIUM does have a few real-world counterparts where it's kind of based off, so we can pull from that if we want to. I mean, considering CORDIUM is basically a mix of uranium-238 and gunpowder, I think we can get a few ideas of what it does. Okay, but what is it? CORDIUM is, to quote from the files, a crystallized compound of dielectric materials, native metals, and still yet to be understood anomalous compositions. If you're wondering what a dielectric material is, well, it's I'm just gonna put the definition on screen. I don't know. It was formed after Yellowstone National Park exploded and caused the end of the world, also known as the Calamity. We'll get to that later. Legends say that during this calamity, CORDIUM just powered power plants without anyone doing anything. It was just nearby and turned them all on, kind of like a ghost in the machine. CORDIUM is sourced primarily from the Ring of Fire, a real-world geological phenomenon along the coasts of the Pacific Ocean, characterized by frequent volcanoes and earthquakes. During the calamity, CORDIUM was formed during the extreme heat and pressures caused by the Ring of Fire explosions, and has been sourced from thermal vents along the ring ever since. Areas of CORDIUM mining are scarred by the sickly orange colour and ever-burning land. CORDIUM mining is quite similar to real-world fracking or oil drilling, although it is a lot more dangerous. Once CORDIUM is out of the ground, it's processed into a usable state and then shipped off. Although using it as a fuel is a bit weird, once it's into a refined state, it's put into some sort of containment chamber, and then some sort of catalyst is introduced to the fuel. This ignites the CORDIUM, which will then burn for a few moments at extreme heats, which is very dangerous. Once it's cooled down from this initial reaction, it's used as fuel sources for anything that can hold it. We'll get into that later. Because of the extreme value of CORDIUM as a fuel source, the major powers of the world are the ones with access to thermal vents to mine CORDIUM. This includes Soeki, the Federation, and Cascadia. States which are not on the Ring of Fire and thus do not have access to CORDIUM vents are nicknamed periphery states. Usually these weaker states are swallowed up by the Federation or some other strong power.
The sun is a deadly laser.
Now, while we have gone over some history, let's go over a bit more real quick. After Yellowstone National Park exploded, there was a period of about 150 years in which humanity was still recovering and in disarray. Many societies popped up around this time trying to survive despite the ash clouds that was covering the planet because of Yellowstone. After this period, nicknamed the Long Cold, history would begin to be recorded again in AC, or after calamity. During the years that led up to modern Project Wingman, CORDIUM processing and utilization expanded. However, this path was not an easy one and many lives were lost. The city of Solstitium, the second largest city in Cascadia, was wiped out by CORDIUM that was improperly handled. This happened about 40 years before the events of Project Wingman, and the devastation made way for stricter work safety laws when it comes to handling CORDIUM. Historically, CORDIUM has only been used for battleships and general power. It's not been able to be weaponized due to its very volatile nature. However, during the Cascadian Liberation War, this changed. We know that CORDIUM is very dangerous and reactive. However, we did not know how reactive. There was a crack theory that CORDIUM could react with itself while still in the Earth if given enough of a push. If this theory were true, then cordium-based weaponry would be out of the question, as it would just be too dangerous to use. Unfortunately, this was only a theory at the time, and during the Cascadian Liberation War, Federation forces used experimental cordium-based ICBMs against Cascadian forces. The city of Prospero would be the site of this disaster. Despite the effort of local mercenary Air Force squadrons, the multiple cordium explosives ignited the cordium within the earth underneath Prospero and caused a second calamity, the Cascadian Calamity event of 432. Despite this disaster, there were a few silver linings. The second Calamity event was not as destructive as the first Calamity event. Yes, it caused geothermal ruptures, earthquakes, and storms, but it did not completely destroy the modern world. Our second silver lining was that the political fallout from the Federation's actions were noted harshly by its own members, such as the Kingdom of Soeki and the Western African Concordiate. Such actions would isolate the Federation and cause many of its vassals to break free. Despite a second calamity event, the war continued until the Second Battle of Presidia, in which Cascadian and mercenary forces pushed out Federation forces until a ceasefire was ordered. However, this was interrupted by a rogue Federation peacekeeper unit, setting off a cordium warhead in downtown Presidia. This eliminated many Federation, Cascadian, and mercenary troops, and caused chaos for weeks to come. The rogue Federation peacekeeper was declared KIA. It is reported it was a mercenary ace who took the kill. Cordium is used to fuel battleships of air, land, and sea varieties, as noted by the cordium trails left behind by the air battleships. It is also used as railgun ammunition and power source, similar to depleted uranium slugs in real-world warfare. Cordium is also used, obviously, in WMDs, such as the Cordium ICBMs and the EUFB from Conquest Mode. Because of cordium's volatile nature, it should not be used in smaller vehicles like one-seater jets. However, the PW Mark I and the SP-34R both use cordium-based fuel. These two jets are highly experimental and as such were both highly volatile. Notably, the SP-34R used cordium fuel, but when it is destroyed by Hitman Squadron, it has a relatively controlled explosion. But when the PW Mark I is destroyed during the Prospero disaster, it has a much more notable destruction. This is likely due to the PW Mark I's much more insane combat specs. Despite being much smaller than even air battleships, it has access to rapid-fire railguns, burst missile launchers, shield generators, and supreme speed and maneuverability. It can be assumed that the fuel required for such a jet meant sacrificing safety protocols. It also meant using more cordium than the SP-34R did, or air battleships for that matter. During the Cascadian counter-offensive of Magadan, the Federation falled back on drastic measures, recruiting their reservists to defend the coastline. During this time, the Cascadian General Faust attempted to destroy the Federation Cordium processing facility. Doing so would mean the Federation would be forced to buy cordium from Cascadia at a premium. However, the reservist K9 squadron defeated her before she did such a thing. Now, this is a very basic description of Frontline 59 because I've yet to play it. I don't have access to it, so I will go over this in more detail once I do. Probably make a whole video for it actually. But what I do know is it introduced laser cannons, possibly cordium based, and that Faust's airship, the Roosevelt, is much stronger than any other and explodes in a similar way to the PW Mark I. Perhaps it too limited its own safety protocols. Right, that should be most of the video done. I've gotten all the audio recorded, I've started editing together the footage. Who can I send it off to get it, like, fact-checked? Oh, I know, I'll send it to my family. My sister likes this kind of stuff. Oh. Oh no. Wait. Okay, so this was where the video was supposed to end. Just a funny little video about a funny little crystal in a funny little flight sim. I did have a few ideas about calculating out the yield of cordium explosions, but that required math that was a bit above my head. But then I showed the video to my sister, and she went a little bit deeper. So, everyone thank my sister for making this video like twice as long, I bet. Okay, so, where do we start? Well, after giving my sister some information about the game, namely what the EOFB looks like compared to the Accipiter, the size of a crater on Mission 1, and other such stuff, she came back with a lot of information. Now, a quick disclaimer. All this information is based off of best guesses and extrapolation. If I were, say, in my middle school science class and I submitted this as a paper to my teacher, I would be getting a big, fat 0 because of how inaccurate it is. But this is just a little fun exercise so we can get a good idea of what cordium is actually like, so let's just go with it anyways. First, let's look at the cordium detonation during the first mission. The containers on the dock look like standard size intermodal containers used on cargo ships, and we can assume that cordium is stored with the same safety standards as uranium in the United States. From that, we can assume the carried payload is at a minimum 10% of the cargo volume and at maximum 30%. The reason for this variation is because the safety systems could vary between, I don't know, a bunch of cardboard boxes or lead-lined titanium boxes. We don't know, so we're just going to give ourselves a range of what it could be. In the end, this means that the containers have between 1.9 and 5.7 cubic meters of cordium stored within it. Once we've done that, we can get the radius of the resulting crater by flying over at a steady speed and timing how long it takes to cross it. It looks like it has a diameter of 443 meters, and we can assume a depth of 110 meters based on how explosions work. An explosion of that size means it would have to be a 118 kiloton explosion. Now that we have all the numbers, namely how much energy would be needed to make that explosion and how much cordium is stored in the container, we can do a bit more calculations and we can figure out how much energy is stored in cordium. We have two answers here. For one, if the container had 5.7 cubic meters of cordium stored in it, that would mean cordium had an energy density of about 85 trillion joules. But if it contained only 1.9 cubic meters of cordium, it would have about 256 trillion joules. Now that sounds like a lot, and well, it is, but here's a bit of a surprise, because uranium, when used in a nuclear fission reactor, has an energy density of 1.5 quintillion joules, much higher than both cordium samples. That's one hell of a difference, isn't it? And it doesn't really make sense. What about the calamity? What about, well, we'll get to all that. Now, next, the experimental uranium freefall bomb. And yes, it says uranium in the name, but that shit is not an atomic bomb. Look at the ground scars. That's cordium. This is a cordium bomb! This was calculated by comparing the EUFB to a B-83 jet-mounted nuclear bomb and assuming the two have a similar internal composition and payload as well as similar dimensions. We also compared it to the W79 shell, whose information is declassified, so we won't be pulling a war thunder here by talking about it. Using the W79 as a guide for both minimum and maximum yields, the EUFB would have a yield between 7.2 and 79.5 terajoules of energy. And finally, we looked at the Prospero disaster. Of the 3 explosions we're talking about, this is absolutely the most scuffed one as far as numbers go. Essentially, we just took the area of the city which Prospero is probably based on, and chucked 12 cordium-tipped cruise missiles at it, and saw what kind of yield they needed to blow it up. Of course, this ignores the fact that more or less missiles could hit the city, they could be focused on one place, etc. and etc. It's fine though, we're just having a bit of fun with this one. This time, we compared the Cordium cruise missiles to the Little Boy nuclear bomb as well as the AGM-86 cruise missiles. The area of total destruction for the Cordium cruise missiles is about 278 square kilometers and have a yield of about 518 kilotons of TNT. Now that we've got all this math done, look at this graph. Look, a graph. Look at this a graph. Isn't it great? Anyways, what can we learn from all of this math? Was it all worth it? Well, no, yes, maybe. The calculations we've done here are way too guesswork heavy for anything conclusive, but it isn't worthless. For one, cordium is pretty damn weak compared to nuclear fuel for reactors, but why is it so destructive? What makes it so dangerous? It took 40 years for the city of Solstitium to become habitable again. Well, I have 2 answers for you. For one, it's common. Very common. If you're on the Ring of Fire, you've suddenly become a superpower because you can just mine it. It's comparable to oil drilling, but more dangerous. There's enough cordium to fuel hundreds of battleships and cities for years. It's straight up modern day oil, complete with devastating ecological impact.
But I'm not done yet!
Because if you're someone who's done their research, you might have already realized something is a bit up. Solstitium. It took 40 years until it was safe to begin cleanup operations, and I have a question for you. How long will Chernobyl stay uninhabitable? Did you say 20,000 years? That's quite a disparity of numbers, don't you think? Come to think of it, cordium is so much more destructive than what the math might say. After all, just look at Prospero. Well, here's your answer. Cordium is very energy efficient, as in, more of its matter is converted to pure energy than anything else. Let's say you burn a lump of coal. Sure, it stores a lot of energy, but a lot of it is lost on smoke, CO2 emissions, and other such things. A lot of it comes off as energy that we can't use. However, cordium converts a shit ton more of its mass into energy. This was actually a fact I missed on, and my sister found while researching. Alright, that's pretty cool and all, but what does that actually mean? Well, it means in the moment of a reaction, cordium is very, very dangerous, but over time any fallout it has will clean up surprisingly fast. It burns hard but quick, gone in an instant, but leaves a hell of a mark. Oh, and remember when I said this? Cordium does have a few real-world counterparts where it's kind of based off. What kind of real-world material was I even talking about? Let's turn our heads right back to Chernobyl, right down into the basement beneath Reactor 4 to one of the most radioactive and dangerous pieces of metal known to man. The elephant's foot, also known as corium. Yes, cordium is just corium with a little bit of extra D. The elephant's foot is known for being so radioactive that in 1986, if you were exposed to it for just 30 seconds, you'd die. Over the years, though, that time limit has gone up tenfold to about 5 minutes. Compared to the rest of Chernobyl, the elephant's foot is becoming safer faster, because just like corium burns bright and fast. Also, if you want to learn more about the elephant's foot, I do recommend looking into it yourself. It's pretty interesting. Alright then, wise guy, what about the exclusion zones in Project Wingman? If cordium is easy to clean up, then why are those there? Well, duh. It's because cordium feeds cordium. It's a chain reaction of it burning itself and constantly giving off unstable energy. The only way to clean up these thermal vents would be to, theoretically, suck them dry, or pump them with enough cordium neutralizing agents to drown a small country. In conclusion, cordium is fun. Very fun. I'd want to own a cordium rock. Definitely a crystal of harming people very fast. It's mostly used in weapons and energy, but that's pretty much it. And it does beg the question though, during the Long Dark, were people peddling cordium medicine? Did people roam the lands, selling cordium face masks? What about cordium lava lamps? Cordium healing rocks to help with your congested bronchitis? Years later, are people selling cordium heated blankets? Are there mass recalls because someone put cordium in the lava lamps? Could I buy a bunch of cordium and stuff a fake dog with it so Federation peacekeepers breaking into my house will shoot it and then destroy the entire city that we are all living in? This is a normal question for me to ask. And Sector D2, if you are watching, I would love an answer. Thank you and have a lovely day.